Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem. This is my postmortem number 312. We have two games to look at here. The first game is a short knockout in the Ruy Lopez, so let's take a look at it. Won't spend a lot of time on this one. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6. So everything is normal, and bishop b5 is the main move of the Ruy Lopez, and a6 is the main reply. Bishop drops back. And now we get the first somewhat unusual move. The most common move here is knight f6, putting pressure on the e-pawn. But you don't have to play that way. You can play b5 here and kick the bishop back. And you see it's not a bad idea. It's the engine doesn't like it. It's just, the engine doesn't mind it, I should say. Thinks it has a typical sort of opening advantage for white. So black has not done anything terrible just yet. But the next move, d6, is definitely suspicious. Well, he's defending a pawn that doesn't need defense. I mean, after all, he's played b5 to kick the bishop back. And this knight is defending the pawn adequately. It's not getting traded off. So d6 is completely unnecessary here. And you could immediately try and take advantage of the situation of my bishop by playing knight a5 here and going after the bishop, trying to grab the bishop pair, but that's a bit risky. So a developing move like knight f6 is probably best here. Or bishop b7. Yeah, knight f6 and bishop b7. After you give the computer time to think, it'll find those moves. d6 isn't awful, but it's somewhat redundant. And you might want to keep in mind the idea of playing d5 in one go. So playing d6 right away is somewhat committal. And now here I was looking at the situation. I didn't see any immediate way to take advantage of it, but I was aware that my opponent had already deviated from the normal course of development here. So when that happens, I guess this is the lesson of the first game. It's whenever you or your opponent has deviated from the standard moves in an opening, you always should be alert for tactical possibilities. And I didn't see anything here, but it's often a good idea to castle in these situations and then open up the center when you have an advantage in development. So I castle. It also means I can defend the pawn with the rook and don't have to worry about other ways of defending it. And now he plays knight f6, which is an actual mistake. He should play something like bishop g4 or knight a5. But the problem with knight f6 is that it left this square undefended, so the knight can hop into g5, and this square is coming under attack. And if you look at this, the engine right away spots knight g5 is a strong move. Now the game is not yet over. He can counterattack and should. This is like the Italian game, where the two knights defense to the Italian game. Black always plays the move d5. It's just that in this situation he's lost the tempo since he went from d7 to d6 and now d6 to d5. He's like playing the Italian game a tempo down. But he didn't do that. He played bishop e7. And then after I take on f7, yeah, I thought for a while of taking with the bishop, but taking with the knight is stronger because his rook is just completely undefended. His queen only has one square to go to. And it looks like I'll be able to take the rook and even escape with my knight. So just a rook up. And so he resigned here. So that's the lesson in this game is pay attention. Especially when you're in an opening and your opponent has played some unusual moves. Look for those tactical ideas. Okay, so let's go on to the next game. So in the next game, let's change the board around. I was white. Let's see, make sure we got the right one. Yeah, I was white. I played e4 and he played c5. No, he played e4. I was black. He played e4. I played c5. And we get into a Sicilian defense, although he played g3 on the second move. So he's into obscure openings, I guess. So we're going to get into a closed variation of the Sicilian where he's not playing d4. And looks like d5 I could try here, but knight c6 is reasonable. He goes knight c3. And I play e6. e6 maybe is not the most accurate move. g6. Setting up a counter fianchetto. Well, he's got a fianchetto here. It's not a counter fianchetto. It's a symmetric fianchetto, I guess. But I was thinking, well, I want to challenge the center, so I play e6. And we've got an even game, so it's not a blunder here. Bishop g2 and knight f6, keeping development in mind, and not afraid of this push of the pawn to e5 because my knight can take that. Okay, so he played d3 here. And now I went bishop e7, keeping the development going. I could already play d5. I was thinking about d5, but I decided I wanted to castle and get the king out of the way first. And now he plays f4, and I went with a6. Once again, okay, so we're out of the opening book. Let's just look at the annotation tab. Once again, the idea with a6 is I want to play d5, and I just want to prepare it first. I don't want his knight to come in here to this square, which can happen. Let's see, let's erase those arrows. It can happen if I play d5 and he plays e5, kicking my knight. Then his knight can hop in here. At this point, it would be a pawn sec, so it still wouldn't be a good idea. So a6 maybe was not strictly a necessary move, but good move in the long run to keep the knight out of this square. Okay, he develops with knight f3. And now I push on with d5. Cancel that. He just castled here. So it looks like the engine likes knight e5 here for white to activate his pieces. Reasonable way to play. Okay, but he castled. Also, not bad. I mean, we're going to stay in the range of equality for a while here. I decided to exchange. And he took back. And then I castle. So I'm pretty happy with this. I didn't care. If he wants to take queens, I'll get a rook on the d file. He decides not to. And he just played h3 here. And I decide to expand on the queen side with b5. So he's got some pawns here on the king side that might cause trouble in the long run. But it also creates some weaknesses over here. And at the same time, I'm going to expand on the queen side, maybe harass this knight and try and go after the e-pawn, which he's not pushing. The engine is recommending a push to e5, which is, I was expecting that. But he doesn't want to play that way. He wants to keep the center here, and it keeps control of these squares. There's some rationale to playing that way, but I think e5 is the better move in this case, and forcing a little bit of discoordination of my pieces. Okay, so he played knight e2, just bringing this knight over the king side, and I go queen b6. So I get my queen on this good diagonal, which taking advantage of the pawn pushes, he's opened up a line towards his king. And in the right circumstances, this move c5 to c4 can come with check, can be a good tactic to keep in mind. He goes bishop e3, blocking the diagonal immediately. And now I could, yeah, I didn't spot this at the time. I could just take that pawn. He's undefended e4 here when he moved his knight away, and I could just have grabbed that. Instead, I continue developing bishop b7, and now he played knight e2, defending the pawn, so I don't immediately win it. But I can continue developing. I go rook a to d8, thinking that the f rook over here might still be useful. So I brought the a rook over to the d file. Goes queen e1, and now knight d4. And really, I was expecting him to take this. The engine says he should just play rook c1 and defend the c-pawn, but he played something else, g4. So this is twice. In the previous game also, he fell victim to a fork between a queen and a rook, and he's falling victim to it again. So this is one reason why you should always study your own games, especially your losses, and look for patterns like this. You know, if you're falling for these kind of tricks all the time, you want to really find some way to burn them into your brain so you don't fall for them again. Anyway, knight takes c2 is the obvious move, and I spotted it. So his queen runs away, and now this was the instructive point in the game, another instructive point. But the rook has a choice, and the knight has a choice of taking the rook or the bishop. And the rook, of course, is worth more material, so if you're just counting points, you would take the rook. But the bishop is actually more active. And if you look at the chess engine's recommendation, it thinks that knight takes e3 is the better way to play. Well, it thinks rook to d3, first of all, is even stronger, leaving both pieces hanging and just bringing more force into the attack. And The engine is probably right. It's usually correct about things like that. But knight takes e3 is a better move than taking the rook in the corner, because it's getting rid of this active piece. Whereas when I grab the rook, which is what I did, it gets his rook. I mean, it does remove one of his pieces from the attack, but he can just bring it back in one move, and this bishop stays active. So that wasn't the most accurate way to play. It was better to get rid of this active piece here. Anyway, interesting point, I thought. So I play queen c7 here to get out of the pin. And you'll see I still keep a winning advantage. I am up material here. I'm up a pawn and the exchange. But just would have been stronger to play the other way. So he goes rook f1. Cancel that. Rook f1. Getting the rook back into the attack. And now rook takes d2 could have been played here. Giving the exchange back, but taking this pawn on e4. Oh yeah, I did think about this. This is a tactic. It removes the defender of the e-pawn, and the bishop has to retake, and so the knight coming here forks the queen and the bishop, and wins a pawn too. So this might go rook takes d2, bishop takes d2, knight takes here, and now he needs to move the queen, probably queen back to e1, and I get to win one of the bishops, so it's probably this one, and I'm going to win the other bishop too. So this would be, I would be 2 pawns up and in a position with even material, but with the bishop against a knight after we exchange here. The engine doesn't exchange immediately the bishops, but plays other moves first. Anyway, so that would have been an interesting way to play. I thought about that, but just played more simply. I keep the exchange advantage, just push my pawn forward so that I'm no longer have to worry about defending the c-pawn. He played knight g3 here, trying to maneuver his pieces for the attack, and now I come in. Oh, I've got a double on the d file. See if I can get some pressure here. He pushes on with f5, and I can just trade this off. And now he took with the knight. Probably a mistake, because it leaves this weak pawn behind here on e4. So bishop to b4. Yeah, going after the knight here on the d file. He plays knight to f3. And that leaves the pawn hanging. And this time I didn't let the pawn get away. I grabbed it. So the queen comes out to h4 to attack. And if he could get the queen over here, there's a mate threat this way. There may be ideas of a knight check here. So he has gotten some activity. I have to be a little bit careful. But I can, first of all, pin this knight and pin this bishop and force some trades. And of course he can jump in with his knight, threatening checkmate in this corner. But because I take the bishop with check, it's pretty simple to reduce all the material here, and that's the easiest way to do it. I take there, he has to take back with a knight, so it pulls a piece away from the attack. Then I can take this knight, and there's no checkmate threat because this knight has been pulled away from the attack, and his bishop has been traded off. And now I can trade off the other bishop, and have a pretty simple win from this point on. He tries, well, I invade with the rook, with rook d2, and threatening to come in here with the queen with checkmate if he drops the king back. So he blocks, and I get to trade off some more material. And then I come in here with the queen h2 check. So he defends, and then I bring my rook in, threatening to coordinate my rook and my queen somewhere. I'm not sure exactly what the threat is here, but I'm clearly winning. Queen takes h3 is a move here. So after queen d5, trying to defend against these threats on the e file, just trying to get the queen into a better position. I can grab over here, or I can play queen d6, it says. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not what the engine was recommending. The engine was recommending queen d2 or queen d5. D5 defending the knight, and now queen takes h3. Yeah, this is a pretty convincing win. Anyway, after rook e8, my opponent just resigned, and that's how the game ended. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Just remember to be alert for those tactical chances when they show up, and particularly when your opponent wanders out of the opening book. So see you guys later. Bye.